This pitiful mother and daughter had to wake up at 3 in the morning every day. Then they had to prepare breakfast for the owner before 8 in the morning. They especially had to keep quiet when the owner was eating. However, today, the daughter accidentally dropped the pot lid on the ground. This action made the owner angry. Without saying much, she beat the girl's mother until the head bled. Then she cruelly forced the girl to wipe the blood off the floor. Seeing this scene, the girl was extremely heartbroken and shed tears for her mother. But weak Wu Yi could only silently endure everything. However, things did not stop there. The owner's cruel nature could not be controlled. If Wu Yi made even the slightest mistake, the owner would brutally beat her mother. But because of Wu Yi, the mother still endured everything. One day, the owner, Basara, received a phone call from a customer. It turned out that the customer had taken an interest in the beautiful Wu Yi. The client asked Basara to let Wu Yi be his concubine. Basara spoke English to the client and agreed to give him a chance. After hanging up, Basara asked Wu Yi to join the next banquet. Wu Yi's mother had a bad feeling, so she told Wu Yi to learn English by himself so that they could understand what the master said and know what to pay attention to. Since then, Wu Yi has also tried to learn English by himself. At the same time, You's mother was always worried about her daughter. She felt that danger was approaching her daughter, so You followed the instructions of another maid and wrote a letter of distress to a kind owner in the suburbs. She said that she and Wu Yi were being held captive by Basara here. They had been doing hard labor for 4 years straight. Not only were they not paid, they were also beaten and treated unfairly. You begged the shop owner to help her and her daughter escape. However, before they could wait for help, the party arrived sooner than expected. Basara held a banquet party to entertain her customers who had been doing illegal business with her. Wu Yi and Yeo served the customers together. After Basara chased away all the other customers, Basara gave a chance to a man named Mathi to approach Wu Yi. Yeo heard her daughter's cry for help and rushed to save Wu Yi, but was stopped by Basara. For the safety of her daughter, Yeo ignored Basara and rushed to save Wu Yi. She was then brutally beaten by Mathi. Mathi even intended to continue harming Wu Yi, but it was Basara who stopped him. However, Mathi used Basara's weakness to threaten her. He asked her to bring Wu Yi to his house. Basara told Yeo to go prepare her daughter's luggage. Hearing that, Yeo pushed Basara to the ground. Then Yeo hurriedly returned to the room with her daughter to pack her things and prepare to escape from the mansion. But they were stopped by the guard. Basara chased after her and continued to beat Yeo savagely. Yeo quickly used the hair stick to control Basara. Then Yeo asked the guard to release her daughter. Yeo told her daughter to go to the city to find the owner of that shop for help. But how could the young Wu Yi escape from this place? Seeing her daughter being captured by the guard, Yeo used the hair stick to stab Basara in a fit of anger. This action made Basara even angrier. She beat Yeo to death right in front of Wu Yi. Poor Wu Yi witnessed her mother die right in front of her, but could do nothing. She could only sob in pain. She ran to her dying mother's side. Before she died, Yeo gave the hair stick to Wu Yi. Basara ordered her men to drag Wu Yi out. Then they dug a hole to bury Wu Yi's mother. Then, Basara told her men to put Wu Yi in the car to take to Mathi's place. While the bad guys were waiting for the police to check, Wu Yi used a hair stick to stab the guard and took the opportunity to escape from the car. She ran to the bridge, put her mother's hair stick in her hair, and jumped into the river. But she didn't want to die. The two men who chased after her saw this scene and thought that Wu Yi would definitely die. But many years later, Wu Yi, now an adult, appeared on the streets of England with red hair. It turned out that Wu Yi had known that Basara's son, Fatchai, was living in England, so Wu Yi wanted to avenge his mother and punish Basara. Wu Yi decided to start with Basara's son. Wu Yi went to the coffee shop that Fatchai often went to and pretended to pass by him by accident. In the evening, she deliberately created a chance encounter to start a conversation. With just a few words, Wu Yi successfully attracted Fatchai's attention. Soon after, Fatchai asked Wu Yi to have coffee next time. However, at this time, Wu Yi had changed his name to Ticha. Fatchai was fooled and still thought that he was lucky in love. He did not know that it was all a revenge plan that Ticha had planned for many years. This time, in addition to avenging her mother, Ticha also had a more important task, which was to find solid evidence to expose Basara's crimes, then overthrow her illegal labor intermediary business chain. It turned out that after jumping off the bridge that year, the smart Ticha successfully escaped death from the river. She followed her mother's instructions. Ticha went to the riverbank to seek protection from a woman named Niwai. Niwai's fate was also very tragic. She was also one of the workers who was deceived by the intermediary. Her own brother lost his life to save her. Over the years, Niwai has patiently waited for the opportunity to avenge her brother. Under her leadership, many people who had difficulty crossing the border were rescued, and they gathered a group of poor people who had escaped from their employer's house. That year, Niwai adopted Ticha and gave her a new identity. Niwai helped Ticha impersonate the documents and identity of a dead person of her age. Now Busara is a very high-ranking person in society. Facing Busara with such a wide network of connections, Niwai could not confront her directly to take revenge. After careful consideration, Niwai agreed and supported Ticha's plan. The plan was to approach Busara's son to find a way into her company. Sure enough, Ticha successfully approached Fachai, Busara's son. They met again at the coffee shop. This time, Fachai also asked for Ticha's phone number. She immediately reported the progress to Niwai and said that she would speed up the plan. Not long after, Ticha asked Fachai to have dinner at a restaurant. When the food was served, she arranged for the waiter to dirty her clothes. The waiter quickly apologized. What surprised Ticha was that Fachai was very polite. He said it was okay and did not blame the waiter for being clumsy. Then Ticha used the excuse of going to Fachai's house to change clothes. Ticha also suggested that Fachai pack the food to take home to enjoy. Thus, Ticha easily got to Fachai's house. While Fachai was looking for her clothes, Ticha took the key on the table to get the food, but Ticha secretly took a photo of the key and printed the image of the key on her thigh. After that, she pretended that nothing had happened. Then they had dinner together. Before leaving, Ticha knew that Fachai was kind enough to help the waiter pay the fine, and he even asked the boss not to fire the employee. This surprised Ticha quite a bit. She did not expect Busara's son to be so kind. She expressed her gratitude and politely left Fachai's house. However, Ticha did not expect that Busara had asked someone to monitor her son's every move. She knew that her son had brought a woman home today. Busara immediately ordered her subordinates to thoroughly investigate all information about that woman. Currently, Busara had a new maid. She told the maid that Mathi would come to eat here. The maid was extremely scared when she heard Mathi's name. It turned out that Mathi now had a new partner to play with. The maid immediately ran outside to ask for help, but when they heard that her boss was Busara, they immediately said that they could not do anything. It turns out that Busara has built a very good public image. She's currently running a children's relief fund. To outsiders, she is a very kind businesswoman. However, she is actually running an illegal intermediary business. She is currently transporting laborers. One of them is a pregnant woman who is about to give birth. In order to avoid exposing her illegal activities, Busara ordered her subordinates to leave the pregnant woman alone in the forest. The illegal laborers that Busara transported out were never stopped by the police. Some of those transported have mysteriously disappeared. Niwai hopes that Ticha can find solid evidence of Busara's crimes so that they can report her. Meanwhile, Ticha in England is also speeding up her revenge plan. Ticha deliberately creates coincidental meetings with Fachai, and she also takes advantage of private moments to have meals with him. Under Ticha's plan, Fachai was quick in her gentleness. That night, they went to Fachai's house to spend the night. The two had a fun night. When Fachai was fast asleep, Ticha secretly woke up. She went to the room and carefully searched for clues. She hoped to find information related to Busara's company. However, she searched for a long time without finding anything. Suddenly, Busara called her son. Ticha pressed the answer button. When Ticha heard the familiar voice of her enemy, she told Busara that Fachai was sleeping and she woke him up to answer the phone. After saying that, Ticha gave the phone to Fachai, who had just woken up. She left Fachai a note and hurriedly left. Fachai also hurriedly hung up on his mother. Seeing that her son did not care about her because of a woman, Busara was extremely angry. She smashed things to vent her anger. She immediately asked her subordinates to give her Ticha's file. They found out that Ticha was an interior designer. The house she was living in had only been rented for a year. The subordinates assumed that this girl and her son knew each other through work. At that time, Busara did not think much of it. At that time, Fachai saw Ticha's message. It turned out that she apologized for accidentally answering the phone and asked him to apologize to his mother on her behalf. This action made Fachai feel that Ticha was very thoughtful. He made an appointment to meet her the next day. The next day, Ticha personally baked a cake for him. This made Fachai feel the love that he had not felt for a long time, because his mother had never cooked for him. After that, Ticha and Fachai officially dated. The two of them experienced many sweet and warm moments together. They went out together, went to the bookstore to study together, and then they started living together sweetly. Fachai would cook breakfast for her. Of course, Ticha did not forget her work. She took the opportunity to check his phone, and she also checked his computer and social media accounts. But she did not find out that he had contacted anyone in Busara's company. At this time, Fachai still did not know anything. He still thought that he had met the true love of his life. Ticha heard Fachai's sincere confession and was a little touched and hugged him. After a while of contact, Ticha was sure that Fachai was a good person. He also did not participate in his mother's illegal activities. Therefore, she did not want him to be involved in this revenge plan. Therefore, she decided decided to leave England and return to Thailand. She had to find another way to get revenge. After Ticha told Niwai about her decision, she immediately packed her bags and prepared to leave. Before leaving, her mind kept flashing back to the moments when she and Fachai were together. At this moment, she understood that in this game, she had lost her love, but she still firmly chose to leave. Ticha wrote a farewell message to Fachai. Tia said that her adoptive mother was sick and she had to return to Thailand to take care of mother. Since Ticha left, Fachai had become more certain that she was the one he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. So he made a decision. He would return to Thailand to propose to her and decided to take her and her adoptive mother to England to live. When Ticha returned to Thailand, she also missed Fachai very much. Ticha also told Niwai that if it weren't for his mother, she would have loved him forever. So when Ticha heard Fachai's phone call proposing, she burst into tears of happiness. Fachai said he would take her to meet his mother. Ticha agreed to Fachai's proposal because she wanted revenge. Ticha suggested that Fachai stay in Thailand to live or live in his own house. Receiving a definite answer, Fachai was extremely happy. He immediately returned to Thailand and took Ticha to see his mother. Ticha was surprised to discover that the garden where her mother was buried had been converted into an office by Busara, and Ticha's biological mother was buried by Busara right under this big tree. Ticha looked at the big tree and tears fell silently. While Busara was talking to her son, Ticha quietly wiped away the tears on her face. When Ticha looked directly at Busara, she became even more determined to take revenge. Ticha then gave Busara a statue of a human head with a scary shape. Fachai saw that his mother hated this gift, so he quickly covered for Ticha. He explained that he had personally chosen this gift. Ticha also took the opportunity to place the statue on the empty table. After chasing Ticha out, Busara told her son that she was not satisfied with Ticha, but Fachai insisted that he liked her, and this time he came back to marry her. Fachai and Busara had a fierce argument, but Busara still could not convince her son. She had to be patient this time to settle her son. Hearing her son say he wanted to go out for dinner and stay at a hotel, she advised him to stay home, but it did not work. Fachai only agreed to stay home after being persuaded by Ticha. Seeing that her son did not listen to her, Busara was very upset, but she still politely invited Ticha's adoptive mother to have dinner. Ticha's real purpose was to stay at Busara's house. She wanted to take this opportunity to find evidence of Busara's crime. Fachai was fooled and still thought that his girlfriend was very thoughtful. He believed Ticha's lies. He thought that his girlfriend wanted him to spend more time with his mother because they would soon leave England to live. However, he did not know that both his mother and his girlfriend had secrets from him. Then Ticha took the opportunity to go to the bathroom to secretly check the surveillance camera on her phone. It turned out that Ticha had secretly installed a surveillance camera on the gift statue. She saw Busara walking around the office and curiously stared at the statue for a long time. Suddenly, a phone call interrupted Busara. Ticha heard that Busara would be dealing with an informant in the office tonight. That night, while Fachai was sleeping, Ticha discovered that someone had brought goods to the office to deal with Busara. Ticha went downstairs to the office to peek and found Busara counting money. Ticha immediately used her phone to secretly record the scene. Unexpectedly, Busara discovered this. Busara immediately left the office to check the outside of the house. Not having time to retreat, Ticha pretended to go for a walk. Ticha explained to Busara that she had insomnia, so she went downstairs for a walk. Ticha also said that she really liked the garden behind the house. Hearing Busara explain that the plants grew well because of good fertilizer, Ticha was very angry because her mother was buried under the tree by Busara. This conversation made both Busara and Ticha feel the tension between the two. Early the next morning, Ticha visited the foster mother and showed her the video she had secretly recorded. Niwai said that they needed to find the money and the passports of those who were deceived so that they would have solid evidence to accuse Busara. Ticha guessed that the evidence was definitely in the office, but the surveillance camera Ticha installed could only last for 3 days. Someone needed to help her change the battery, but the office was not easy to enter. Ticha wanted to find an ally to help her. Ticha told her foster mother that Busara's maid currently had the key to the office. Knowing that the maid was also controlled by Busara because she did not have a work permit, Ticha understood that the maid was just like Ticha in the past. Ticha sincerely advised the maid to seek help from her, but the maid still did not trust Ticha. When she knew that Busara invited Niwai to dinner, her foster mother also decided to join because she wanted to meet that evil female leader. Niwai wanted to see what her eyes were like. That day when Ticha returned, she met the maid who almost broke something. Ticha promptly helped the maid and once again offered to help her. The maid also gradually felt Ticha's kindness. That evening, it was time for Busara to welcome Ticha's foster mother. Busara dressed up like a lady and even ridiculed Ticha with friends for being pregnant and rushing to get married. Ticha said that they wanted to get married, so they made this decision. Busara asked Ticha for her foster mother's opinion. Ticha immediately told you to ask my mother yourself. Then Fachai came to pick up her foster mother, Niwai. Niwai now came as a small business owner. She and Busara shared their own views on business philosophy. During the meal at the table, Busara asked Niwai again about how much dowry she needed. However, Niwai affirmed that she raised Ticha not for any personal reasons but only because she felt sorry for Ticha's unhappy childhood. Therefore, she only wanted Ticha to be happy and joyful in life. On the contrary, Busara thought that Niwai's words were just a pretense. After Busara tactfully let the others leave the table, she began to make sarcastic and mocking remarks to Niwai. She clearly expressed her dissatisfaction with Ticha becoming her daughter-in-law. However, Niwai calmly replied that it was Busara's son who took the initiative to ask to marry her daughter. If Busara had any opinions, she should talk directly to Fachai. Niwai also affirmed that she loved Busara's son very much. Because Fachai is a kind and gentle person, he is completely unlike Busara. Hearing this, Busara was about to retort when she suddenly realized that Mathi had come uninvited. To avoid him causing trouble, Busara quickly left everyone behind to go out to welcome him. It turned out that Mathi was suddenly gotten drunk. He wanted Busara to send her maid to serve him. Busara angrily reminded her of the incident under the tree last time, but Mathi still did not know from his experience. On the contrary, he used the story of Busara killing Ticha's mother to threaten her into doing what he asked. With no other choice, Busara had to return to the party and ask the maid to serve Mathi. But Ticha understood what was waiting for the poor maid, so she was determined to save her. Ticha told Fachai to take her foster mother away from the party first. Then she went to the living room herself, where something bad was about to happen. As she had expected, Mathi intended to take advantage of the opportunity to molest the maid. When Ticha heard the maid's distressed cries for help, Ticha immediately rushed into the living room. Ticha asked Mathi to release the maid and warned him to mind his own business. Ticha then left and closed the door. However, Mathi coldly replied that this woman was just a maid. Ticha realized that he ignored her pleas, so she had no choice but to smash the vase to show her resistance. While struggling with Mathi, Ticha unfortunately injured her hand. Their argument attracted Fachai's attention, causing him to run over. Not long after, Busara also appeared in the living room. It was their presence that helped the maid escape. Mathi. After things calmed down, Fachai took Ticha to the hospital to treat the wound on her hand. When the two returned home, they found that Busara had been waiting for them for a long time. It turned out that she wanted to call her son into the office to talk privately. While Ticha was returning to her room, she happened to meet the maid waiting at the door. Through this incident, the maid completely trusted Ticha, and she begged Ticha to help her escape from this miserable life. Ticha agreed and asked the maid to support her in her upcoming plans. Ticha then returned to her room and checked the surveillance camera on her phone. She discovered that Busara was talking to Fachai about their marriage. During the conversation, Busara stated that for his happiness and joy, she would no longer object to him and Ticha being together. However, she asked Fachai not to register his marriage with Ticha. At the same time, she promised to quickly hold a wedding ceremony for them. However, Fachai insisted that he wanted to discuss the marriage registration with Ticha first. But what surprised him was that before he could say anything, Ticha proactively asked them not to register their marriage. She just wanted the two of them to live happily together. Ticha's sincerity and love moved Fachai deeply. Not long after, Busara personally prepared for her son's wedding. She personally directed the staff to decorate the wedding area. She took care of every detail. Fachai felt very happy and grateful for what his mother had done for him. Meanwhile, Ticha also prepared carefully. She changed into a gorgeous and radiant bridal outfit. Busara also brought wine to invite Ticha to have a drink. Perhaps because Busara's acting was so perfect, Ticha did not feel anything unusual. Ticha drank the glass of wine that Busara gave her without any doubt. Then Ticha happily accepted the gift of a necklace from Busara. However, one sentence from Busara made Ticha feel scared. Busara hopes that Ticha will never forget this day for the rest of his life. It turned out that not long before, Ticha had cleverly saved the maid from danger, and this action of hers made Busara extremely unhappy. Busara then went to see Ticha to talk privately and asked Ticha not to interfere in unrelated matters. After all, that person was just a maid. But Ticha thought that it was also a human life. Busara immediately warned Ticha not to go beyond the limit. However, Ticha remained steadfast in her position. Ticha declared that she would save the maid at all costs, and also threatened Busara that if you gave the maid to Mathi again, I would reveal all you evil deeds to Fachai. Busara looked at Ticha as she left, feeling extremely angry. So on the occasion of the wedding day, Busara Busara secretly put poison in the food and told the waiter to bring Ticha a poisoned dessert. Ticha ate the dessert without any suspicion, and she was immediately poisoned. Blood flowed from her mouth. Ticha's body fell into a deep coma. Meanwhile, Busara stood on the balcony enjoying a glass of red wine. Looking at the scene of the person she hated lying on the floor in pain, Busara smiled smugly. When Ticha looked at Busara's face with an arrogant expression, she silently swore that she would definitely take revenge. However, Busara still pretended not to know anything. She and her son quickly took Ticha to the hospital and even appeared worried. She told the doctor to take good care of Ticha. Ticha lay on the hospital bed. Although her body was not conscious, she was still vaguely conscious. She fell into a terrifying nightmare. She saw herself buried alive in a lake of dirt by Busara. Next to her was the body of her mother, who had died tragically. At that moment, Ticha was terrified, crying and screaming non-stop. Ticha saw Busara standing above her holding a shovel and laughing gleefully. In anger, Ticha screamed indignantly. With a strong will to survive, Ticha was saved from the brink of death by the doctors. The doctors said that Ticha was out of danger and her severe bleeding was due to an allergy. However, the specific cause still needed to wait for the test results. Not long after, the doctor made an appointment to meet Busara privately to talk. It turned out that the poison was given to Busara by the doctor himself. However, he did not expect that she would use it on her own daughter-in-law. However, Busara insisted that she had no intention of killing Ticha. Busara only wanted to punish Ticha so that she would be more obedient. Busara even used the doctor's weakness to threaten him. She forced him to hide the truth about Ticha being poisoned. So when Fachai asked why his wife was bleeding, the doctor once again did not tell the truth. That night, when Fachai returned home and told his mother that after Ticha recovered, he wanted to take her away from this place and return to England to live. He also planned to take Ticha's adoptive mother with him. Hearing this, Busara was extremely sad. She felt that her son was willing to abandon her for his wife. He continued to leave her alone. Although Busara tried to explain that she needed her son's companionship, he still insisted on leaving. He left Busara in loneliness. On this side, while Niwai took care of Ticha at the hospital and waited for her to wake up, Niwai revealed the truth about the reason why Ticha vomited blood. It turned out that Niwai had asked a trusted doctor to check Ticha's health. The results showed that she had been poisoned, and both of them guessed that the one who poisoned her was Busara. Niwai was extremely worried about Ticha's safety, so she advised Ticha to leave Busara's house and find another way to get revenge. However, Ticha did not want to abandon her plan halfway. She could not bear to see more innocent people like her mother being brutally harmed. Niwai also realized that Ticha's deep love for Fachai had torn her between love and hatred. Using her lover as a tool for revenge made Ticha feel extremely miserable. But despite having to endure that torment, Ticha still decided to return to continue her plan of revenge. So when Fachai suggested leaving the house and returning to England, Ticha did not respond immediately. Not long after that, she and her husband returned home. While giving the luggage to the maid, Ticha discreetly put a piece of paper in it. The content of the paper was to make an appointment with the maid to meet secretly in the evening. Then Ticha went to see Busara and saw her comfortably using a scratching tool. What Ticha recognized was the weapon that had been used to kill her mother. Pain and hatred welled up in her heart. She secretly made up her mind to avenge her mother. That night, during a secret meeting with the maid, Ticha asked her to break into Busara's study and secretly put poison in the tea filter that Busara often used. The next day, Busara used the filter to make tea and drank the poisoned tea. Not long after, while swimming in the lake, Busara felt uncomfortable. Then she vomited blood violently. Ticha, with a calm appearance, told her husband to invite her mother to have afternoon tea. Ticha cleverly arranged for him to save her mother in time and take her to the hospital for treatment. While Busara was not at home, Ticha quickly handled all traces related to the poisoning. Ticha also asked the maid to pretend to clean up to cover the surveillance camera at the entrance to the study. Taking this opportunity, Ticha sneaked into the room and changed the batteries for the devices and began to search everywhere. Ticha tried to find evidence of Busara's evil deeds. However, she could not find anything useful because the most important drawer was locked. Without the key, Ticha was helpless. At this moment, the butler in the yard noticed something unusual in the study. He almost discovered Ticha rummaging inside. Luckily, Ticha escaped in time without being detected. At the same time, Busara also woke up in the hospital. When she knew that the poison in her body was identical to the poison Ticha had been poisoned with before, she immediately guessed that Ticha had poisoned her. In her suspicion, she turned on her phone to check the surveillance camera, and she discovered that Ticha had secretly rummaged through something in her study. She began to suspect Ticha's true identity. Busara immediately ordered her subordinates to investigate all of Ticha's records. At the same time, she requested wanted to find out the identity of Ticha's biological parents. Not stopping there, she also informed the housekeeper to check the situation in the study and carefully monitor every movement. Busara checked her wallet again. She was relieved to find that the key to the important drawer was still in her pocket. There, when the housekeeper received the call, he immediately went to check the study. There he found the maid cleaning up the broken cameras. It turned out that the maid had intentionally broken the cameras to hide Ticha's intention to return to rummage through the study. However, because of the appearance of the housekeeper, Ticha was forced to stop her plan and wait for another opportunity to continue searching for evidence. Then, to buy time, Ticha told her husband that his mother was sick and they needed to stay a while longer to take care of her. Ticha was deeply moved when he heard that. He believed that his wife was a thoughtful, understanding, and filial person. Without any doubt, Ticha brought a bouquet of flowers to visit his mother. He said that he wanted to stay a while longer to take care of her. This moved Busara deeply. He then took his mother back home. When they returned, Ticha and the maid were already waiting for them. Busara cleverly found a way to get her son and the maid out. She then asked Ticha to take her into a room to talk privately. During the tense conversation, the two admitted that they were the ones who did the poisoning. Busara asked Ticha directly about her true intentions. Busara asked why Ticha did not reveal everything to Ticha. Ticha pretended to say that she just wanted to be a good daughter-in-law and that she wanted her husband to be happy. After the sarcastic conversation, the two understood that neither of them wanted to hurt Ticha, so they decided to maintain a facade of harmony, even though they both disliked each other. However, one day after Busara interrogated the maid, Busara came up with a plan to get revenge on Ticha. Busara asked the maid to buy ingredients and said that she wanted to cook for herself. While preparing, she intentionally dropped a glass cup on the ground. When she picked it up, she secretly kept a piece of glass in her hand. At this time, when Ticha saw that scene through the camera screen, she still did not understand what Busara was plotting. It was only when Ticha ate the afternoon dessert that Busara made with her own hands that blood suddenly gushed out of her mouth. At this time, Ticha realized how sinister and cruel Busara was. Ticha quickly ran to the bathroom to treat the wound. Ticha completely did not expect that Busara could be so cruel as to put a piece of glass in the food. The piece of glass penetrated deep into the skin inside Ticha's mouth, causing her mouth to be filled with blood once again. Despite the pain, Ticha still gritted her teeth and pulled out the piece of glass. Seeing Busara's cruel and perverted actions, Ticha decided that she would take double revenge. Ticha walked out of the bathroom with a face as if nothing had happened and calmly told her husband that she had just felt nauseous, probably because of pregnancy. Ticha was extremely happy when he heard that he was going to be a father and hugged Ticha tightly in happiness. However, what Ticha did not expect was that Busara had seen through this plan. She immediately contacted the doctor and asked to take Ticha to the hospital for a pregnancy test. She wanted to expose Ticha's lie on the spot. Although she really wanted to refuse, Ticha could not do anything because Busara had made up a reasonable excuse that Ticha had suffered from food poisoning before. Busara pretended to be worried about the health of the baby in Ticha's womb, forcing Ticha to agree to go to the hospital. While preparing, Ticha secretly contacted her foster mother to report the situation. Ticha asked her foster mother to think of a way to help her deal with it. After knowing that the doctor would perform the test on the third floor, Ticha sent a text message to inform her foster mother. Ticha's foster mother immediately arranged for someone to clean the third floor, with the intention that person would help Ticha change the urine sample while she was taking the test. But what no one expected was that Busara seemed to have anticipated this plan. Busara firmly refused to allow Ticha to leave the area. Busara asked Ticha to use the bathroom in the doctor's office and stood guard right outside the door herself. In this situation, Ticha could not change the urine sample as planned. When she realized that her plan to fake a pregnancy was about to be exposed, Ticha immediately prepared another plan. Ticha said that she would explain to Ticha that her vomiting was due to the stress of living with her mother-in-law. Then Ticha would show Ticha the wound in her mouth and she would tell him everything. However, Busara had no intention of compromising with Ticha, but surprisingly, the results of the next test surprised both of them. The doctor announced that Ticha was actually about 3 to 4 weeks pregnant. Seeing Ticha's happy face, Ticha could not contain her emotions. She ran out in excitement. It turned out that after realizing that she loved Ticha, she did not want to continue using him as a tool for revenge. At first, she only intended to use other ways to approach Busra, but she accidentally dragged Ticha into this revenge plan. In her torment and self-reproach, Ticha's tears kept falling. She apologized to Ticha and admitted her remorse. But at this time, Ticha did not understand the pain in her heart. He only gently comforted her and tried to ease her sadness. Returning home, home, Ticha went to the door of the study where her mother was buried under a large tree. Ticha confided to her deceased mother that she did not know where to go and where to return. She really could not bear to hurt her husband and the child in her womb. The warm and happy images of her mother in the past suddenly came back, causing Ticha's tears to flow again. At this time, the housekeeper who was gardening in the house came over to ask Ticha what she was looking at. Ticha quickly lied that she saw a mouse in the study. During the conversation, she accidentally heard him reveal that under each tree in the garden there was a special type of fertilizer. Hearing this, Ticha felt extremely scared of Busara. This meant that in addition to her mother, many other people had also died tragically and were buried here. Thinking about living in a house surrounded by corpses, Ticha felt horrified and could not control herself and vomited violently. On this side, Busara knew that the child in Ticha's womb was conceived before the wedding took place, especially when Busara remembered that she had poisoned Ticha on the wedding day. At this time, she began to worry about the safety of the fetus. Not long after, she received a call from a partner asking her to come and discuss a cooperation project. The other party asked each person to pay another 10,000 baht to continue the plan. However, Busara said that she could not afford this unreasonable amount. She intended to use the dangerous method that Mathi had used to save money. However, Warut was the one who helped her handle relationships, so he was not satisfied when he did not receive the expected amount of money. He immediately threatened to expose her crime. In order to erase all evidence of the crime, Busara called the housekeeper to discuss. She promised to facilitate him to secretly dispose of all the fertilizer under the trees in the garden. Upstairs, Ticha happened to see Busara instructing the housekeeper to do something. Taking advantage of time, she went to the toilet. She secretly checked camera in the study. Through it, Ticha discovered that Busara was secretly handling the computer. It seemed that she tried to delete all the files in the computer at night. Ticha realized that Busara might be preparing to carry out a big plan. The next day, Ticha visited her foster mother and told everything she had discovered. Ticha said that in order to avoid hurting her husband, she planned to hand over all the evidence she had collected to an honest police officer. Ticha hoped to use this person to defeat Busara legally. Ticha planned to hide the whole plan from Pachai and complete her revenge mission. Then she would pretend not to know anything and return to England with her husband to start a new life. Now all she needed was to collect solid evidence. She also promised her foster mother that she would convince Pachai to leave here to create more favorable conditions for implementing her revenge plan. Ticha believed that everything could be completed within a month. During that time, Ticha assigned her mother to find the honest police officer. Ticha's foster mother was worried about Ticha's happiness and future, so she intended to advise Ticha to give up her revenge plan. But when she thought about what was buried under the trees in the Busara's garden, she understood why Ticha could not ignore it. That image further stimulated the anger in Ticha's heart, making her more determined in her plan. She was determined to stop Busara. She could not let Busara continue to harm innocent people. Ticha wanted to completely end this series of crimes. After discussing with her foster mother, Ticha returned with a stronger will for revenge. When she returned home, Ticha was surprised to discover that Busara had used the excuse of wanting Pachai to buy the house to convince them to leave and return to England to live. Ticha's intuition told her that Busara was planning to chase them away to carry out some plot. Seeing the situation, Ticha immediately agreed with Busara's opinion and also persuaded Pachai to go to England to choose a house. In order to keep Pachai temporarily in England, she also cleverly advised him to accept a job from an old client who had entrusted him. However, she said that she needed to stay to take care of her foster mother, so Ticha would go to England after her foster mother's health recovered. In addition, Ticha also asked Busara to allow the maid to accompany them to England. Ticha used the excuse of needing someone to take care of her foster mother. Taking this opportunity, Ticha deliberately suggested that the maid admit that she currently did not have a passport. Upon hearing this, Busara immediately became angry and immediately called the maid into the study and scolded her for revealing the passport information. As punishment, Busara forced the maid to take off her clothes and heartlessly poured boiling water on her back. The maid's back was immediately severely burned and covered with painful blisters. Meanwhile, Ticha was watching through the surveillance camera and was extremely surprised. She couldn't believe that Busara could be so cruel. On the other side, the maid didn't dare to resist. She quietly left the study and accidentally met Pachai, who was coming. Seeing her crying, Pachai asked the reason. The maid made up an excuse saying that she accidentally spilled tea. When Pachai was about to go into the study to see what happened, Ticha immediately stopped him. She tried to keep the truth from being revealed. The next day, Pachai said goodbye to his mother and Ticha. He officially left for England. Meanwhile, Ticha also prepared her luggage to move to her adoptive mother's house. Before leaving, Ticha forced Busara to make passport for the maid. At the same time, Ticha affirmed that she would definitely take the maid away from here. Otherwise, Ticha would tell the whole truth about poisoning to Pachai. However, Busara had no intention of giving in. Instead, Busara secretly called Mathi and promised to send the maid to his house. The maid overheard this conversation and immediately reported it to Ticha. After knowing the story, Ticha comforted the maid. Ticha told her to stay calm and continue with the plan they had paired. Meanwhile in England, Fachai patiently searched for a suitable house for him and Ticha. Fachai followed the advice of a friend and went to see a doctor for a health check. During the conversation, the doctor noticed that Fachai had become more stable since marrying Ticha. The doctor advised Fachai to try gradually reducing his medication. From their conversation, it was revealed that neither Ticha nor Busara knew that Fachai was suffering from an illness that required medication to control his emotions. However, one day, Fachai happened to meet a colleague in the interior design industry. Through the conversation, Fachai discovered that this colleague had absolutely no idea about a designer named Ticha. It was then that Fachai realized that Ticha had lied to him from the first time they met. She had pretended to be an interior designer, and she even claimed that she was his colleague. The truth surprised Fachai greatly. He hurriedly returned home and rummaged through everything to find something. During the conversation with Ticha, when Fachai confirmed that her first approach to him was arranged, Fachai could not hide his sadness. At this moment, Fachai finally understood why Ticha had apologized to him before. In his drunken state, he collapsed to the ground. Fachai was surprised to see the hair stick that his wife had said was lost for. Looking at the hair stick, he remembered what Ticha had said, that this was a keepsake left by her mother. Holding the hair stick in his hand, Fachai stood still for a long time. He began to wonder if Ticha was the little girl whose hands were tied and who was holding this hair stick. The painful memories that he had tried to forget came flooding back. He remembered that when he was young, he had longed to stay home and live with his mother, but his mother wanted to run illegal brokerage businesses, so she did not hesitate to send him abroad to study, regardless of his feelings. One time, he even called his mother hoping to surprise her, because his mother had promised that if he got the highest score, he could return home. When he got the highest score, as his mother wanted, Fachai was full of hope that his mother would come to the airport to pick him up. However, Busara asked him to wait at the airport. She asked a close friend to find a hotel for him to stay temporarily, and she quickly bought a plane ticket for him to return abroad to continue studying. At this time, Fachai did not know that his mother was committing terrible crimes. At that time, Busara had just murdered Ticha's mother. She ordered her men to dig a hole to bury Yeo's body and plant a large tree above it to hide the crime. On the other hand, Fachai did not follow his mother's arrangement. Instead, he took a taxi home. When he entered the family compound, he accidentally saw a little girl, Ticha as a child, being carried away by the guards. The boy realized that the girl's hair stick had fallen to the ground. In an effort to escape from her control, the girl ran back to pick up the needle before being caught again. At first, he thought that his family had been broken into, so he rushed inside to check. However, what Fachai saw made him unable to believe his eyes. The mother he loved was the mastermind behind everything. His mother, with her body covered in blood, was ordering others to clean up the murder scene. Fachai was deeply shocked and could not believe that his usually gentle and loving mother could be so cruel. The kindness and love she showed him was just a perfect cover for the evil hidden inside her. Back in the present, Ticha also began to plan to deal with Busara. Ticha posted the eavesdropped conversation between Busara and his partner online. This conversation could prove that Busara had colluded with Mathi. Mathi was a famous lawyer, and Warot was a corrupt police officer. They had done illegal things together. Ticha planned to test how powerful Busara's power was. Next, Ticha asked the maid to keep an eye on the housekeeper. Ticha knew that he was leading people to dig the ground in the yard. Ticha told the maid to secretly take pictures as evidence. The maid was almost discovered by the housekeeper. Just as he was about to go check, a phone call interrupted, so the maid escaped. The next day, the recording that Ticha posted online caused a stir. Mathi, Warot, and Busara all heard the recording of their conversation at almost the same time. Ticha and her foster mother had people post comments attacking Busara. They did this to put pressure on the local authorities. As a result, an upright police officer immediately announced that he would thoroughly investigate the case and absolutely not let the guilty escape the law. This meant that the gang led by Busara was about to be investigated. Her foster mother was worried that Ticha would lose her happy family, so the mother advised Ticha to stop now while it was still too late. However, in order to destroy the illegal human trafficking gang and rescue the poor people like Ticha and her mother, Ticha chose to stand up and bring them to justice. Immediately after, Ticha called the maid to ask if Mathi had contacted Busara. Ticha accidentally knew that Mathi had sent someone to send Busara a box of candy. Ticha told the maid to check what was inside the box. At the same time, Busara was trying to recall the specific details of that day's phone call. Busara remembered that she had scolded the maid and chased the maid away that day. Then she became suspicious of the strange statue that Ticha had given her, so she immediately went to check it thoroughly. Just as she was about to discover the hidden camera in the statue, Ticha saw this scene through the surveillance camera. She quickly informed the maid to interrupt Busara. Basara. So after the maid took a picture of the note in the box, she hurriedly brought candy box to the office. This caused Basara to stop checking the statue. After Basara saw the note in the box, she knew that Mathi had arranged to meet her at 10 o'clock tomorrow night, the same location, to discuss how to resolve current crisis. Basara recalled the maid leaving the office in a hurry, so she chased after her and grabbed the mail's phone to check. Fortunately, as soon as the maid left the office, she sent the note to Ticha and deleted all the photos on her phone, so Basara did not notice anything unusual. But at this time, Ticha called again and heard that the maid did not say anything, so she quickly hung up. It turned out that they had agreed that if they could talk safely, the maid would have to say the word good first. Ticha guessed that the maid was in danger. Sure enough, seeing that the maid refused to reveal who had contacted Ticha, Basara told her to pack her bags. Basara said that he would take her to Mathi's house tonight. The maid did not want to be abused by Mathi, but she remembered Ticha's words of encouragement. After a long hesitation, she finally chose to live on. At the same time, Ticha saw the information in the note that the maid sent. They ambushed in front of Basara's house and prepared to follow her to find the meeting place. But what everyone didn't know was that Fachai had also secretly returned to the country at this time. He saw everything and secretly followed Ticha. He discovered that Ticha and her adoptive mother were using binoculars to observe his mother. Ticha saw that the maid was also brought here, so she stepped forward and used her phone to take pictures as evidence. At this time, Fachai called, and at this important moment of collecting evidence, Ticha chose to hang up, but Fachai called back. He wanted Ticha to honestly answer him who she was and what she wanted to do. Ticha guessed that he had discovered something. Feeling his unstable mood, she was filled with tears. She also wanted to answer Fachai clearly, but at that moment, World appeared, so she resolutely hung up again. Ticha chose to record a video as evidence first, but tears kept falling silently on her face. At this time, Ticha saw the maid being taken into a sealed container. It turned out that thanks to everyone's reminder, Basara finally remembered that she had made the phone call that day in her office. At that time, Basara was about to check the strange human-headed statue when she was interrupted by the maid bringing candy. At that time, the partner called to discuss with Basara. At that time, only the maid came to her room, so Basara could confirm that this matter was definitely related to the maid. So Basara immediately called the maid for questioning. The maid said that she did not know anything. Even so, she was still tortured by Basara to tell the truth. At the same time, Ticha picked up a wooden stick and walked closer. Fachai followed Ticha silently. Hearing the maid's miserable screams, Ticha used the stick to knock on the car trunk to make noise. Ticha hoped to make them stop torturing the maid. This noise successfully attracted their attention. Warot got out of the truck check. When he was about to find Ticha, fortunately, Fachai was following her. He pulled her to a hidden place to help her escape. Just as Warot was about to continue checking, suddenly a loud explosion came from afar. It turned out that Ticha's foster mother had asked someone to cause fire. She did so to attract fire department to put out fire. Ticha turned around and saw Fachai, who was also very surprised. On the other side, Warot ran to the truck to inform them fire department was about to arrive at the scene. He asked them to retreat immediately. Mathi was craving for the maid's body, so he asked Basara to hand her over to him. Niwai's accomplices intended to rescue the maid, but they discovered that they were carrying guns. They were forced to abandon their plan to rescue the maid. At the same time, Fachai kept asking Ticha what she was doing. Ticha, feeling guilty, remained silent. On the way back, Ticha told Fachai that no matter what the truth was, remember that she loved him very much. Ticha's foster mother also advised them to talk things out and reminded Fachai that Ticha had her own troubles. Fachai could not accept Ticha's deception for the time being. He angrily questioned the reason. Ticha could not bear to say that she had used him as a tool for revenge. For half a day, she just silently shed tears. Finally, Fachai could not wait any longer. He took out the silver hair stick and poured out a lot of antidote pills all over the table. Fachai painfully told Ticha his secret. He said that he suffered from depression and had to take medicine to maintain his condition. That was because more than 10 years ago, on that night when he returned home, he saw a girl holding this hair stick being tied up and taken away. At the same time, he discovered that his usually kind mother was covered in blood. At that time, he was still young and did not understand what had happened, but his intuition told him that it was not a good thing. Since then, he suffered from severe depression. Ticha was in tears. Then Ticha also told Fachai the whole truth. She said that his mother was a leader of an illegal human trafficking organization. When she was young, she and her mother used to be his mother's maid. She was treated unfairly by his mother and was always beaten since she was little. At the same time, she showed him the scars from his mother's beatings in the past. Ticha cried and told him about her unhappy childhood. Fachai quickly hugged his wife, who was in extreme pain. He wanted to comfort her wounded heart. Thinking that everything was caused by his mother, Fachai was also very miserable and helpless. Ticha told Fachai that your mother liked to give young girls to Mathi to satisfy him. That night, the reason she ran away was because Mathi almost raped her. Last night, the maid also encountered the same situation as her. She risked her life to save save the maid. Ticha told Ticha that she would not stop there. She had to put his mother in jail to prevent more people from being harmed by his mother. Ticha was so shocked that he could not believe his ears when he knew that Ticha's mother was buried under a tree in the office by his mother. His mother's cruel behavior made him feel extremely surprised. After he said goodbye to Ticha, Ticha prepared to go see his mother. At this time, Busara was asking the housekeeper to dig up the soil under the tree in the office. She intended to destroy the evidence of crime in the past. Suddenly, she received a phone call saying that Ticha had impersonated a dead person. Busara immediately suspected Ticha's identity. She angrily smashed the human head statue that Ticha gave her and finally discovered the hidden camera inside. She finally understood that the recording was posted by Ticha. Ticha also colluded with the maid to set a trap for her. Busara called Mathi and asked him to immediately interrogate the maid. Then she smashed things to vent her anger. She shouted that she would kill Ticha in revenge. At the same time, Ticha was rushing to find a way to save the maid, but everyone knew where the maid had been taken. Currently, only Busara knew where the maid was. Ticha wanted Ticha to ask his mother where the maid was, but Ticha did not answer the phone. Ticha worriedly drove out to look for her. At the same time, Busara received Ticha's detailed profile. Finally, Busara found out that Ticha was the maid from the past. Remembering Ticha's previous unusual actions, Busara finally understood Ticha's reason. Busara was very angry because Ticha dared to deceive her son's feelings. Right now, she saw her son suddenly return home. She immediately told her son that Ticha was a fraud. All of Ticha's information was false. Ticha also said that Ticha's real name was Wu Yi. Ticha then, despite his mother's objections, dragged her to the office to confront her. Ticha directly talked about his mother burying Ticha's mother under a tree. His mother not only denied it, but also falsely accused Ticha of deceiving him. Ticha told his mother everything. Ticha recounted the evil things his mother had done that night and confessed that he had been at the crime scene. That night, at that time, he did not understand what had happened, but he knew clearly that it was a very scary thing. From that moment on, his mother killed Ticha from within her soul. Busara felt that she could no longer hide it from her son. Busara told her son that the reason she did so was for herself and him. At the same time, she gave him the final solution. Busara let her son take Ticha to England to live. Just send her a picture of her nephew later. Busara's only request was to hope that Ticha would stop taking revenge, but she underestimated Ticha's vision. Now for Ticha, she not only wanted revenge, but also wanted to completely destroy the illegal human trafficking organization led by Busara. Ticha wanted to save many poor people from suffering. Hearing Ticha still insist on asking where the maid lived, Busara immediately called Mathi to ask, but the person who answered the phone was police. It turned out that the abused maid had the intention of taking revenge. She used the small knife she carried with her to stab Mathi in the stomach. Although Mathi did not die on the spot, he was seriously injured. Taking advantage of the remaining strength, he brutally beat the maid. Poor maid was beaten until she passed out. Mathi tried to call the doctor for help. The doctor immediately arrived. He saw the maid lying unconscious on the ground, so he first went to check her wound. Just as the doctor was preparing the medical equipment, the maid woke up and picked up the medical pole. When the doctor was not paying attention, she went to Mathi's side and stabbed him many times to vent her anger. Mathi eventually died at the hands of the maid. The doctor decided to call the police and take the maid to the hospital for treatment. At the same time, Newwise workers also found a loophole in the contractor because there was a construction site recently. The contractors were planning to bury the workers who died in an accident in a cement pit to hide their crimes. A worker, wanting to avenge his son, intentionally broke a large crane, causing it to fall right into the cement pit. The contractor saw this scene and ran away in fear. This major accident successfully attracted everyone's attention. The media went to the scene to investigate and interview. Hearing that Warren wanted to contact lawyer Mathi, but no one answered phone. Everyone did not know that he was dead. After the maid killed Mathi, she also took a picture of him and posted it on the wall to comfort the girls he had harmed. Busara felt something was wrong, so she quickly turned on the TV to watch. Busara saw the TV reporting a crane accident at a construction site. In the mud pit at the scene, many bodies of illegal immigrant workers were found. The construction contractor had fled. Mathi, who was involved, was also dead. Warren was also arrested. Busara saw that the relationships she had spent decades building were destroyed in an instant, so she went crazy and wanted to take revenge on Ticha. Busara declared that she would kill Ticha to vent her anger. Immediately after that, Busara picked up a hoe and continuously attacked Ticha, but Ticha quickly dodged it. Ticha was finally cornered to the point falling into a large hole, but she also pulled Busara down with her. They then continued to fight fiercely in the hole. Busara kept trying to kill Ticha. Fortunately, Ticha managed to crawl up, but Busara also crawled up and chased Ticha. Although Ticha used a hair stick to stab Busara, this only made her revenge more crazy. As soon as Ticha was in danger, Ticha came to stop his mother and save Ticha's life, but Ticha was also pushed into the hole by his mother. Two of them fought over the gun on the table. Finally, Busara grabbed the gun and pulled the trigger on Ticha, but Ticha quickly dodged. The bullet fired by Basara hit Fachi, who had just stood up. He immediately collapsed in a pool of blood. Witnessing this scene, both of them were stunned. Basara did not expect that her son would die under her own gun. Ticha immediately jumped into the hole and hugged Fachi. Ticha begged Basara to call a doctor to save her son. Basara called his own doctor, but that doctor was being questioned by the police. Basara did not want to call another doctor to save her son, because once another doctor arrived, her crime would be exposed. Seeing that, Ticha decided to call an ambulance herself, but Basara, in a fit of madness, jumped into the hole and used a shovel to beat Ticha unconscious. Poor Ticha fainted on her husband. Not knowing how much time had passed, Ticha, covered in blood, gradually woke up. She found herself still lying in the mud. The first thing Ticha did when she woke up was to crawl to Fachi's side, but at this time, Fachi no longer had a heartbeat. Ticha was in pain and screamed miserably. At this time, Basara came again, intending to kill Ticha to cover up clues. Basara told Ticha, "I will put all the blame on you, that you deceived my son and killed him." After saying that, Basara strangled Ticha, but Ticha picked up a tree branch and stabbed her. Basara was angry and picked up a spear, intending to kill Ticha, but the branch in Ticha's hand killed Basara instead. Basara finally paid for his crime with his life. At this time, only Ticha was left holding Fachi and crying. Not long after, Ticha went to the police station covered in blood. She decided to hand over her phone and confess. Before handing over her phone, she listened to the voice message that Fachi sent her. Fachi said that no matter what difficulties he encountered, he would choose to be by her side to face them. Ticha listened to his voice message and could not stop crying. In the end, the two of them still could not be happy together. That is also the entire content of the film. Thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye and see you again.